Professor Robert Orr is the Dean of the School of Public Policy at the University of Maryland. He's also a UN Undersecretary General for Strategic Planning and a Special Advisor to UN Secretary General on Climate Change. Robert, welcome.
Thank you.
We heard our reporter talk about some of the highlights. In your opinion, sir, what will be some of the highlights of this year's UN General Assembly?
I think the meeting on migration and refugees is going to be truly historic. This is an issue that the world has struggled to get its arms around for many years. Meeting at the head of state level on any subject is important. It's probably doubly important that it's on one of the orphaned subjects, perennially orphaned subjects. Having leaders agree to a formal international process that will lead in 3 years' time or just in 2 years' time to a global compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration is a huge step forward in global governance.
But are you optimistic they can actually reach an agreement?
I think the bottom line is they are not only going to reach an agreement, but start a process that will lead to needs in multiple areas. The world is suffering from incredible stresses of migration and refugee flows. And it's out of this crisis, quite frankly, that these solutions are being born. It is the beginning of a global process. It's something that we've needed for many years.
Certainly, migration issue, the refugee issue is a huge challenge here, but there are so many other challenges we're talking about, so many different conflict zones, which is the reason we have so many refugees. Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan, Nigeria with the fight, against Boko Haram. How do you come up with some kind of consensus on how? I mean, even the agreement in Syria, it took weeks of negotiations, and it's not even a permanent ceasefire. So how do you tackle these challenges?
This is a struggle that we have seen for years now. The Security Council is charged with managing the peace and security issues at the United Nations. Getting the 15 members of the Council to agree on viable solutions for a number of these conflicts has been very challenging. So the first step of getting harmony, if you will, among just those 15 members is the first big step that has been hard in many of these cases. But even once those agreements are struck, trying to implement them on the ground has proven extremely difficult.
That was my next question, implementing them.
And in a case like Syria, which is maybe one of the most manifest failures of the international community in recent years, there have been steps forward on things like the UN investigation on chemical weapons, recently producing a definitive report that says that both ISIL and the government in Syria used chemical weapons. It does not solve the conflict in Syria, but in assigning responsibility and in taking follow-up steps, it starts to squeeze out of the equation even worse possibilities that chemical weapons could be used more broadly. So addressing the humanitarian situation remains of the most pressing needs. It's destabilizing the region in many ways, and just the human toll of the refugee crisis in and around Syria is staggering.
Robert, the last few sessions, there's been so much focus on Iran's nuclear program. That has sort of shifted to the side, and now we have DPRK, which conducted its 5th nuclear test on Friday. Do you expect that to dominate discussions among world leaders, especially among United States and China and Republic of Korea and Japan?
Anytime there is a major crisis like this, right before the General Assembly, it gives it more importance. And what you will see is not so much in the formal chambers, it's what the leaders will talk about on the margins. Will the Chinese and American leadership be talking about the next step of what needs to be done on North Korea? Will the Russians join that discussion? These are the kinds of modalities that are used during the UN General Assembly. This is the crucible of global diplomacy. It will be applied to many different specific situations. It just won't be in full view of the world. It will be happening in sub-basements and sub-sub-basements.
I think you're absolutely right. So many of these key decisions will be made behind the scenes. Robert Orr, thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.